So welcome everybody. My name is Christabel Feeney. I'm the Director of Employers for Change. I'm a white female with blonde hair and blue eyes, and I'm wearing an olive green dress with white polka dots with a light blue virtual background behind me and an Employers for Change logo. We're delighted this afternoon to have Brendan McGuigan with us. He is the Adult Dyslexia Coordinator and Assistive Technology Specialist with the Dyslexia Association of Ireland. The Dyslexia Association of Ireland is a national charity that provides information, assessments for dyslexia and dyscalculia, tuition for children and adults, training for teachers, parents, and others, and advocacy by campaigning for the needs of those with dyslexia. So we're absolutely delighted to have Brendan here. I myself have had direct experience of Brendan's presenting, and he's got a really, really good way with him. So I'm sure you'll all really enjoy this afternoon session. Before joining the Dyslexia Association of Ireland, Brendan was an assistive technology tutor with a third-level Irish institution, supporting a wide range of physical and neurological learning disabilities. With 10 years of experience working in the assistive technology field, Brendan's approach is a person-centred one, being mindful of fitting the technology around the individual. So in today's seminar, Brendan will look at the various accessibility measures already available in some of the programs that we use every day on our laptops and on our computers. And he'll also outline some of the assistive technologies that employers can use to accommodate the needs of employees and to create a more accessible working environment. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Brendan.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Christabel. That was an excellent intro and no pressure at all. So I am, my name is Brendan McGuigan. So I am a white male with dark brown hair, dark brown eyes, and my background should be blurred for privacy settings. So welcome to this. I went through a couple of titles. So you see there, it's Accessible Documentation and Assistive Technology, which I've also toyed with the title of of course the slides aren't moving now, the dyslexia friendly environment. So you're creating that. And then the leap from that would be the inclusive environment. So to support everyone in the workplace, regardless of disability. So a couple of things to note, what I'm going to go through now. I'll leave this slide up for a wee bit longer than usual, because on the right, if you have a QR code or QR scanner rather on your phone, you can scan that and download the slides. If you want to Alt-tab out and go to a browser, if you type the URL bit.ly/BRENE4C, and you'll be able to download these slides and sort of click any of the hyperlinks that are within. So I'll be going through reasonable accommodations, what they are at the interview process, and also reasonable accommodations in the workplace. I'll be going over how to create and that multi-sensory and accessible documentation, and a few, as Christabel mentioned there, a few assistive technologies that pretty much that I always say hidden in plain sight and creating that inclusive environment. So assistive technology is almost like the older term. Nothing wrong with the term assistive technology, but it's sort of pushing towards inclusive technology now. And then a few links and resources, and as mentioned there, the Q&A will be at the very end. So reasonable accommodations, a definition. So this is the definition from the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons of Disabilities, UNCRPD. So it's the necessary and appropriate modifications and adjustments where needed in a particular case to ensure to persons with disabilities the enjoyment or exercise on equal basis with others of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. So that's the UN Convention rights definition. Our ahead.ie, which I prefer, is another definition, is any actions that help to alleviate a substantial disadvantage due to an impairment or medical condition. So that's our own ahead.ie/employer-accommodations. So keep those things in mind, that it's any action that any individual or company can take to support dyslexic individuals or individuals with disabilities in the workplace. So reasonable accommodations at the interview stage. So these could be, providing extra time to allow the individual to process information to deliver that response. The questions and reading materials of any of these interviews that are provided actually in advance of the interview. One really important thing to mention is to avoid double-barreled questioning. This is because there is dyslexia is a range of, I'd say, issues, but people might think, oh, it's just for reading and writing, but there's also parts where it will impact, short-term memory and spatial awareness, that sort of thing. So any of these sort of, I'll ask you this question and then a follow-up question within that question can cause a lot of confusion, and it's always best practice to avoid that completely. And then when that person has given their answer, followed up with your next, or the double barrel question that's then split up. It's always very, very useful to provide alternatives, any alternatives to psychometric testing. MCQs, multiple choice questions, or even psychometric testing is actually detrimental or a bad practice for individuals with dyslexia, because MCQs are they're almost made to trick the person into providing three false, almost false positives, like, quite close to the answer, and then the answer itself. And if someone has that impairment, they can't really, they know the information, but they'll pick the wrong answer, for example. So allow alternatives. So whether that be they provide an example of a process, allow them to present the information that you're going to test them on as well, is a good practice. So allow that multiple means of engagement. So this is leading in, for example, allow them to pre-record a video presentation of skill sets, and then you can question, do a Q&A with that individual afterwards. And then, of course, reasonable accommodations would be the use of assistive technology. So allowing that person to use either text to speech, so allow the questions to read out to them, or speech to text, where they can vocalize and it'll convert their speech into text as well. So reasonable accommodations in the workplace, which I'll be going over in more detail. So creating a style guide for the accessible training materials and this multi-sensory documentation. So you're creating, I'd recommend a centralized knowledge base with multi-format. So if you have one documentation on policies, maybe it'd be also good practice to convert that to an audio format too. So I have an MP3 version of that, almost like an audiobook of that. So these are sometimes preemptive accommodations as well. So the clues in the name, where you're accommodating every single individual that is coming in, and you might notice that more individuals will actually want to listen to the documentation, as well as reading it from the screen, as well as having a hard copy or printout of it. So a kind of bombardment of all senses in a way. So any agendas or meeting or minutes, they are actually provided in advance, and not, I've heard of horror stories where the minutes are provided literally 10 minutes or 5 minutes before you go in. So if that individual has something prepared, they're not really sure of where they go are in the running order of the meeting, for example, which can cause a lot of stress. And to also be mindful of the individual's workload. So if you're delegating tasks, just maybe it'd be a nice routine to check in, either every Friday evening, every Wednesday evening, just to say, well, how are you getting on with this, that, and the other? Are you capable of taking on this? And if not, don't worry. So the next point is about the language and the use of this sort of vague language in emails. So the more specific it can be in emails, because I guarantee I've received probably 10, 20 emails in the space of that I've just started this. So the likes of, as discussed, when did we discuss that? Can you just give it 2 or 3 bullet points? So this is good practice as well, to say, if you stop a person, like when we start slowly but surely getting back to working, being in the office, if you pass the person in the corridor and say, oh, can you do X, Y, and Z? Can you just follow that up in an email with that X, Y, and Z bullet pointed as well, instead of just like, oh, as we discussed, as I passed you on the way to the coffee dock, or this as per previous email. And then you're sort of like myself, trying to search through dates and times, and when was the previous email? Is that the new email? And you're causing that confusion as well. So once you lessen that vague language in emails and give more specific tasks, that'll create a more inclusive and more streamlined there for the individual too. Also providing quiet work areas to eliminate sort of obviously auditory noise and visual noise. If that person has a set routine, that's fantastic. If they're at a hot desk, they're at the same desk every day, because any changes to the routine can actually throw an individual for a loop, and you know, it might take an hour or two for that person to sort of settle and sort of go, okay, I'm in a new environment. It's quite stressful at the moment, but I'll get back into it. And then of course, providing assistive technology, which I'm going to go through now in a moment. So creating accessible documentation. So it's quite useful for your company or any company to have what would be called style guidelines. So guidelines for presentations, internal documentation. Yes, I know I don't follow my own guidelines. Probably in this presentation, you'll see a couple of errors, sort of breaking the fourth wall of presenting here. So if I don't follow any of these, I do apologize. So some of these would be to make documentation easier to read, easier to follow, more accessible to those individuals. So for example, providing easier readable fonts, and that would be sans serif or Roman fonts. And the sans serif just means sort of without the ornate tildes. I believe, let me get this right, Times New Roman would be a serif font. So usually books and that are printed in Times New Roman, whereas if you provide the likes of Verdana or Calibri or Arial, those sort of fonts, I believe topical that Calibri is going to be shortly phased out by Microsoft. I think I read that in the headline. I'm not too sure if that's going to be real or not, but so you might want to switch to a different, for example, I'm using the Open Sans Google font in this. Size at least 12 point or greater for ease of readability again. Left align that text. Now this is for dyslexic individuals for scanning text. Sort of justified or text that's centered is actually quite hard to read because of the trail of the words. So when an individual is trying to scan text, maybe they'll sort of miss a couple of sentences. Where if there's a similar word in place and then that word picks up maybe 2 or 3 sentences, they're sort of jumping subconsciously to that word. Whereas if you can see the end and sort of the wave of the actual flow of the makeup of the document, it's easier to follow along. So that's a point about left aligning text. Being mindful of word count. I know our NALA.ie is, let me get this right, National Adult Learning Authority, I think. I probably got that wrong. They're always like maybe 10 to 15 words per sentence, and that's the sort of the comfort level of words per sentence to get your point across. Be conscious too about line spacing. I have at least maybe 1.2, 1.3 to 1.5 spacing to split up word spacing and line spacing. This is a bit tongue-in-cheek as well, to expand the TLAs and XTLAs. So that just means to expand your 3-letter acronyms and extended 3-letter acronyms. That usually gets a huge laugh. So again, plain language, no jargon, no internal buzzwords. Sort of make sure that the language is accessible and follow the guidelines, short and to the point. So any visual changes. So you can see here that we're using sort of a beige background, sort of an off-white background with dark text over that, and that is because it reduces visual stress. So I know I've personally been at presentations where it's just a plain white background and black text on it. Afterwards, I'm just sort of rubbing my eyes and taking 5 or 10 minutes to sort of readjust to staring at a very, very bright screen. So those changes can reduce eye strain, increase readability. Even it's argued, sort of, this is a bit off topic here, but if you have Windows or Mac installing something like a blue light emitter, so I know one for Windows is built in. There's one called Nightlight, or there's one for a separate program called Flux, that will actually take away the blue light from your screen and make it a bit warmer and easier to read. So reducing that visual stress. And don't worry, I can provide links at the end of this as well, if needs be. using, as I said, dark font, and then even making it a bit more multi-sensory. So the use of embedding multimedia. So usually videos, enabling captioning. So for example, I'm probably going to get this wrong now. So if I hit Control-Shift-C, that turns on captioning within Google Slides. Now it's not 100%, which I'll get to later, but if that's a bit off-putting, I'll just hit Control-Shift-C again, and then switches it back off. So animated GIFs, which I do have embedded, are just, you know, if a process is repeated and you don't need to, I know with if you do embed a video, for example, you know, you play it once and then that's the video sort of shown once. With an animated GIF, the fact that it loops, or sorry, GIF, as it's sometimes pronounced, the fact that it loops, it's great to have that sort of repetition of information, visual information as well. So that's a few style guidelines to adhere to, or just sort of follow, but you'll probably see now that I go off script as well. So let's just talk about the built-in features into Microsoft Office. So Office has this great feature called the accessibility checker. This has been in every single version, I believe, since I know the screenshot is from Word 2016. It's more prominent in the later versions of Office. So it'll be under the Review tab if you're using the latest sort of Office 365 or anything like that. So in this, it's actually in the sort of menu, in 2016 rather, it's in the top left menu button, then the info, and then there is a check doc or inspect document, and then check accessibility. So you can see here, I have two screenshots on this. One of the actual check accessibility, I can't say the word, within Word, and then what errors or messages or prompts, because that's what it's doing. It's trying to look for all these maybe images that will not have alt text on it for anyone with a visual impairment that is reading out a document to them. And alt text, if you've ever been on any website or and it has an image embedded, if you hover the mouse over that, a little white box will appear, and that will give a description of, you know, what that. So for example, if you do need to describe embedded graphs in your document, make sure they have alt text enabled, making sure, as probably mentioned it before in the style guideline, is that the colors are contrasting, that you're not using sort of a too dark background and then text that sort of that jars visually. Making sure that the heading structure is readable, that you're not jumping from formatting of H3 to H2 to H1, that sort of thing. And again, and that impacts the reading order. So what will happen is, if you want to even run this through with any documents that you have already created, check your document for accessibility and then follow the on-screen prompts. So you can see there that the prompt that will appear on a toolbar that will sort of come in from the right is that, you know, go through each issue one by one, and then work through the prompts that will appear on Microsoft Word. And also built into so it's not just Word, sorry, I should say, it's also built into PowerPoint as well. So that, you know, if you're trying to inspect your presentations for accessibility, you can do that too. So this should be an animated GIF or a loop of creating an accessible presentation. So you can actually, directly from PowerPoint, you can convert that PowerPoint to video with narration. So and then, you know, upload that video to, if you're using a Microsoft service, you could use, I believe it's called Microsoft Stream. You could, if you're using a Google service, upload it to YouTube, mark it as a private video if it's just for internal use, or you could you know, save it directly as an MP4 and upload it to SharePoint or a centralized drive that only people relevant access to that, and it's not going to be shared or sort of sent as a link external to the company. So what I'm doing here is, you're within PowerPoint, and this is again PowerPoint 2016, is you click on File, Export, and then Export to Video MP4. Then again, this is the create a video, and then presentation quality is, you choose presentation quality, internet quality, or low quality, and then record timings and narrations. Click on start recording, and then you can actually record it slide by slide, and then it has the great feature of redoing each slide as well. So if you do make a mistake, you know, if you're like myself trailing off a wee bit, or you the coffee hasn't kicked in yet, you can redo that slide and just record the audio slide by slide to match up, and then bulk save that to an MP4. So this is creating, if you wanted to just send this as a piece of knowledge to your staff members, that is accessible, and that you're going to, which I'll show you in a moment too, that you're going to create captioning for it as well to bump up the accessibility of it. So yeah, creating or closed captioning for presentations. So you probably saw there when I hit Control-Shift-C within, I'm using Google Slides at the moment, the automatic captioning. So that's the first method of use. So if you're using Zoom, it's also built into Zoom as well. Microsoft Teams, it's built in. So I just want to warn that it's not 100% efficient. Going speech to text isn't ever 100%. It's close, but you might get a few errors depending on the person speaking, and even background noise if the radio is on, the TV's on, that sort of thing. So the second method of adding captioning to your slides is to grab that audio or video file and import it into another service, which will actually automatically go through and scrub the information and pick out obviously the caption for you. These are services like, I believe Word is slowly but surely rolling out. Beside the dictate button, which I'll get to, there's a little drop down to transcribe, and you can put it, once your site has a proper license for that, it'll actually go through that audio and create the captions for you. And it'll also pick out speakers. Same with a service, if anyone knows it, called otter.ai. That's OTTER.ai. You can import audio or video into that. Now that's a service that's freemium. And that just means that for certain features are locked behind a paywall. I know the free services will let you automatically either transcribe or record 40 minutes at a time. So if you wanted to have separate files of recordings, you could put them in, but I believe it also limits it to 3 uploads per month, and that resets each month too. And then the third method for adding captioning or creating captions is to have that live captioning, and it is 100% efficient because it's a person doing it, and it can be costly. So I just really like using this quote from Mary Pat Radaba. So for most people, technology makes things easier. For persons with disabilities, technology makes things possible. So this is a lovely quote, and it just makes sure like it boosts or supports that theory of equity. Creating everyone has access to this technology if they want to use it or not. That's probably most of my role is actually signposting and saying, hey, look at this can this help you or not? That's that sort of thing, and just spreading awareness of that technology that's built in. And as I said at the start, that assistive technology is almost becoming that inclusive technology. So moving on to assistive technology, what it can help with. So it can help with inspiration. If you're, that sort of blank cursor problem of starting a document, you can use the likes of, I believe there's an actual program called Inspiration, which is a visual tool to mind map, or if you wanted to use speech to text, you could just plug in a headset and just sort of ramble on. You can catch up, like myself, catch up with the point later, and then build a bit around that. Can also assist with memory, time management, and organization, keeping you to a schedule and setting reminders. Reading and comprehension with converting typed text from the machine to speech. Doing the reverse, writing and brainstorm with speech to text. So that level of visualizing thoughts and ideas as well, if that person is more of a visual thinker, and color coordination, using those mind mapping tools again. And also it helps support an inclusive and diverse workplace. So choosing the right technology. So again, it's the signposting, being aware of what technologies are available. Are they built into the operating system? Is it a piece of free software that you can download and try yourself? Is it paid software as well as hardware? Or it could be a combination of these things as well. So the thing about assistive or inclusive technology is it's quite individualized. So I suppose a phrase that I'm probably going to butcher now because I keep getting it the wrong way around is like, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Hopefully you got that right. So once you have that piece of software, you're sort of that preempting those supports as well. So for example, the education system that I worked with, what happened is they installed a piece of software on every single machine that was on campus. And that just meant that any student could log in and convert that text to speech, or even convert that text to an MP3. You know, if they had a long commute and they wanted to maximize their studying time and listen to those documents and not sort of be stressing sitting in the library. So this level of individualized support as well is that certain individuals will know what their strengths are, and sometimes I mean, I've been so surprised as well, because it's a two-way street with learning, especially with assistive or inclusive technology, where you know, if someone's given one piece of equipment and then that person will come back and say, oh, maybe it's not really helping, it's actually causing more stress than helping. It's like, okay, let's move on to something else. So that's where follow-up communication really comes into play. So don't just give the person a piece of technology and then, and of course, this is, I'm not saying this does happen, but just in case, where the person will get a piece of technology and then that employee will go away thinking, okay, now the pressure's on, I have to use this because they've provided this, whereas the two-way street, that open communication isn't there. Whereas where the employer will go, well, are you okay? Is this helping? Or, you know, and the employee has to articulate that, you know, I've seen this online, the other program online, can I use this? And the employer being open to that as well. And that's where trials come in too. So some of these programs will have 30-day or 2-week trials that you can download the program once. This is a point I'll come to later, but once you're allowed to install programs and have admin rights, or even support from IT service to install this, you could be sort of the lead in or the catalyst to creating that inclusive environment, so everyone uses that software. Then depending on the learning curve of that piece of equipment, like is it quite tough? Like, I would argue using a couple of free programs and then using a piece of paid software is the proper way to go, because you're sort of with any investment into the software, there's that pressure. So this is a personal example where I would use maybe the free dictation that's built into Google Docs or Microsoft Office before jumping to Nuance, Drag and Dictate. And that's just, again, a personal preference, because Drag and Dictate can be quite daunting for someone who's going in and never used rather speech to text before. And then, are there any adjustments that need to be made to the current workflow or work environment even? Will that person need a quieter environment if they're using speech to text? And even, you know, if they'll use headphones, and, you know, I know sometimes, oh, that person has headphones in, they're not working, whereas they're actually converting text to speech through listening back and the reverse, using speech to text. And then that point of, will your local IT services support these changes? So you almost have to get them on side with. I know there's one small story about Grammarly, and I was told this myself. I didn't realize where it actually isn't privacy orientated, where it actually sends information external to the company, and obviously you don't want that to happen. And again, they could have patched that. I don't know. That's just one example where maybe an alternative will suffice for Grammar Checker. So that's where IT services will come in and say, okay, we can't really open up a rule for that one program, because that sort of brings in all this other malicious internet traffic. That actually did happen with another program that I used, where they couldn't use the college Wi-Fi to link their their phone to the laptop, and unfortunately it was a security issue. So just to make sure that all those adjustments and supports are ironed out before contacting IT services. So the built-in, I suppose let's go through those. The built-in accessibility settings is, if you press the Windows key, anyone who's on Windows now, if they want to do this, and Windows key and letter U, it'll open up the built-in accessibility settings. So this is like turning on high contrast mode for anyone who would like that visual adjustment made, increasing the text size to make text more readable for dyslexic individuals, turning on dictation if a dyslexic individual is quite good at articulating their thoughts, but when it comes to typing, they're kind of stuck. And then turning on the likes of magnification to make the screen easier to read. You can even adjust the pointer or the mouse as well. So this is just a loop of going through each of those settings that you can see on the right. So magnifier, color filters, high contrast, narrator, etc. So Windows 10 also has a text prediction in it. So this is not in those, unfortunately, I don't know why they haven't included this into the accessibility settings. It's somewhere else. So if you click on your start menu and click into settings, you click on devices, which is number 1. Click on number 2, which is down to typing on the left. You might need to scroll down a wee bit on the information that appears on the right, and you can actually show suggestions for the hardware keyboard on or off, and then autocorrect words on or off. So this means anywhere you can type within Windows, anywhere a sort of a cursor flashes, when you that individual starts typing that word, it will try and predict that word. Now, this might help certain individuals, might not help. I know how dangerous autocorrect can be. So like if this helps, it's good to know that it exists and built in. And then if it's too distracting, then obviously you don't need to use it or have it switched off. It's always, as I mentioned there at the start, that the knowledge of these services existing is sort of half the battle too. Also, I don't want to leave any Mac users out. So with macOS, I believe it's Control Option F5 for the accessibility options. So this has built-in accessibility options to the operating system. So this is available in the accessibility. So you click on the Apple menu, preferences, accessibility, scroll down, click on speech. You can actually select the voice. This may sound a bit weird, but I actually like listening to Irish Moira. That's my preferred robotic voice to listen to. I know how weird that sounds, but it's actually quite a human sounding voice too, and it actually pronounces words correctly for me. So you can actually adjust the speaking rate, so slow the voice down or speed the voice up. And if you had a custom key combination that you wanted to use to enable that text to speech, you can change that. So if you notice there in the screenshot on the right of those speech options, the current key is set to Option and Escape. So when a person is in a document and they press Option Escape on the Mac keyboard, that'll start reading it out in those that voice in those settings. So also text to MP3 within iTunes. So any text you can highlight. You can right click. The Mac's right click is usually sort of a two-digit press on the mouse pad or trackpad, or even just you can actually turn on right click on an Apple Mac mouse, and then the option there is to add to iTunes as a spoken track. So that'll convert it with the voice settings that you already have. So for example, my one would be Moira. it would change that and then select it to that with the speed settings. So dictation is also built in, and that's in the Apple menu preferences, and it's different because it's keyboard, and then you can toggle or toggle on and off dictation, and it might get you to download additional voices throughout all this to recognize your own dictation. And I believe you can dictate punctuation too. So if you say the word comma, it'll type out the word, or actually show a comma, full stop, new line, these commands too. And as I said earlier, that these built-in features sort of are the nice intro to using, building up to maybe if Nuance Dragon is the way to go, and it will help that person, then using these free built-in softwares are available. So I just want to go on about the Microsoft Edge. So Microsoft Edge is hugely beneficial to individuals with dyslexia because it has the immersive reader built into it. Now, last time I checked, the immersive reader has actually been rolled out to other Office 365 products. So Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, etc. So Edge itself is a free browser from Microsoft. It has cross-platform support, so that just means it works on multiple devices. The little asterisk there beside cross-platform support is that it doesn't really work on Chromebooks. There is a very convoluted process to install it on a Chromebook, which is like enabling Linux mode, which might be too jarring, or a lot of steps to actually void the warranty on a Chromebook. But if you go to Edge, it's usually built in with Windows 10 as well. Any article that you're currently on, there's a little icon that will appear in the address bar, which looks like a book with a little speaker on it. And that will actually remove all distractions from the blog or article that you're trying to read. And it will read aloud when you click on voice options, you can actually select multiple voices built in there as well. It also has highlighting, so you can actually expand or increase or decrease the text size. You can turn on actually syllables as well. It'll split words into syllables, and it'll also let you highlight verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and it'll actually highlight the words in a different color that you can associate with them too. So it's very, very personalized. That size, spacing, syllables, and even the background color. So if anyone prefers reading off maybe a violet or pink hue overlay, sort of like very akin to Erlen syndrome, they can actually change the color as well within Microsoft Edge. So it doesn't just do that for the likes of online articles or blogs. It also lets you select text within the browser, right click, and then choose read aloud selection. And this is where this is hugely beneficial, where it will actually highlight what you've selected, and then you can probably see there that there's a blue background and then sort of the yellow highlighter as it's stepping through and reading that voice aloud. So this also works with read aloud in PDF documents too. So if you use Adobe Reader, for example, you can right click on that file and then open with Microsoft Edge, and then click on the read aloud, which will appear at the very, very top of the window. So this leads on to the built-in dictation within Office 365. So their buzzwords is don't type, talk. So it's available for Office 365. Should be a little asterisk beside that, because it's available for free if you're using Word Online. Excuse me. So if you have an Outlook or free Microsoft account yourself, you can just go to Word Online, and then that dictate button will appear. So it's in the downloaded versions. That's where you probably need an Office 365 subscription to enable that dictate button within it. So it works with Word, PowerPoint, Outlook. So you can see there a couple of the current supported languages. They're always Microsoft are always building on these and making more available. So you can dictate in that language. This is I'm probably hopefully not admitting something really wrong here, but it actually picks me up better through English UK setting than a Google Doc or Google voice typing does as well. It picks me up with a higher rate of accuracy too. So this is where too that you need to consult your own IT support with your Office 365 license. But it's just great to have this if you have a few thoughts and ideas that you just want to quickly get out on the page, and then sort of maybe tidy it up afterwards, or even do the reverse, convert that text into speech, which I'll show you in a second. So going the reverse, reading it back out to the person, and then tidying that document up. So Microsoft Speak It. So this is the built into Word and PowerPoint, and this is a sort of, if you blink, you might miss it. So it's a button you can add to the toolbar at the very, very top. So you can see there, it doesn't actually highlight the word, unfortunately, but there's a wee bit of a process to add it to Word. So you can see there, you click on File, go down to Options. This is the animation on the right. Click on the Quick Access toolbar. In the drop down, instead of popular commands, you'd say commands that are not in the ribbon. And then you scroll down to, I believe it's just called Speak, and the little icon looks like a speech bubble with the play button. When you select it and you click on Add and click on OK, it now adds to, you might see the icon appear now at the top left of that animation. So when you select text, you click on that speech button, it'll read back out to you. So that's built in, and that's built into PowerPoint and Word as well. So I just checking the time here, and I believe it's about, I want to leave about 15 minutes for questions. But so further technology supports that'll be notable mentions for individuals will be the use of an online or shared calendar for keeping time, you know, track of things, setting reminders, even if there's a centralized calendar where someone can pop in and you know, add an event or something's working on, or presentation that's coming up that everyone can see. That's always valuable to have, and then reminders can be set for that too. A personal story for me is that I have a couple of calendars that I use personally, and because I have a head like a sieve, it's actually on the home widget or home screen of my phone. So if I unlock my phone, I'll see my agenda as a widget on my phone. And as I said, I have a head like a sieve, so I have my calendar shared with my wife, and that's because I know if I'm told something or an event is coming up, I guarantee 5 minutes later that I've forgotten it. And my mantra is almost like, is it in the calendar? So that's where events will be put into the calendar, so I don't miss like another birthday or event or awkward situation, pretty much personally again. And then personally, I use Google Keep, which is a checklist task list app. Microsoft have their To-Do, which is slowly becoming Microsoft Planner, which is, I believe, going to be built into Microsoft Teams. So that's also the same thing. It sets, I used to be great with using Post-it notes, and I like the catharsis of sort of scribbling out. You know, I've done that checked off the list, whereas now it's just on an app on my phone. And you know, it's great for shopping lists. It'll actually send you geolocation reminders. So if I'm somewhere physically, and I was like, you know, it's like whenever I walk into a room and I forget why I'm in there, you know, it sort of ping, my phone will ping, and then it's like, by the way, you're at this venue, set up a geolocation reminder. Here's what you set up. So that's an automation, or using an app checklist or task list. Also, the sort of the influx of information, like how do you filter that? How do you format that? How do you like sort of squirrel that away? So, you know, there's sort of this thing called inbox zero at the moment, where, you know, you work from your inbox and you sort of create each email as a task list, but you don't realize that filtering and setting up filters of emails is actually really beneficial for time management. And also, like for one example of this is that I'll automatically filter any internal emails within the DAI, Dyslexia Association of Ireland, to myself. So even if it has a keyword in the title, I was like, okay, that's something to work on, and that's a presentation, and that goes to a separate folder. And that just means I have that ready to act on as well. So I think another example, if a person is set in a team of 4 or 5 people, that they have that rule set up to go directly into that folder full of those emails and those conversations too. Just because it's so hard now to sort of condition where you're receiving emails. That email is now on the back of a chat that was in Microsoft Teams, and that's another avenue of connection, or, you know, the WhatsApp group that's coming in as well. So you want to keep all these sort of separate but somehow together as well. Converting text to MP3 files that I mentioned earlier too, that there's certain programs out there that will convert highlight text and that convert to audio file, where if allowed, the person can sort of leave that environment, maybe go for a walk and listen back to the document that they just created, or if they're having a hard time reading off a screen, that they just can go out for a walk and sort of listen to the audio of that file. Concept or mind mapping for brainstorming and visual association. And then also, no one really pays attention to, or sometimes it's forgotten, pushed down the list, is note taking. So, you know, in meetings, our note-taking technologies allowed, for example, is Otter.ai, which now links into Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Is that enabled for automatic transcription? Same with Microsoft Teams, the recordings provided after the fact. There's a hardware device, I know I'm conscious of the time, but a hardware device called the LiveScribe pen. Are they allowed to use that to record meetings, that sort of thing? But yeah, that's pretty much myself. Just a few quick resources here, which the AHEAD's Universal Design for Learning link is at the top, and that the NALA Plain English Guidelines. So I've converted all these to sort of short bit.ly links, so bit.ly NALA Plain. So yeah, we have an AT YouTube playlist. So if you want to hear more of my monotone, there's just me talking through a couple of these programs that you saw the GIF or GIF examples of. So that's bit.ly/DAITECH. We also have an adulthood, dyslexia and adulthood playlist. That's bit.ly/DAI adult. On our website, there's a great area for adults dyslexia at work supports. So that's bit.ly/DAI adult info. There's also the adult checklist. So DAI checklist is the end of that